Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Syndicate. My name is Mark. I'm really glad that you decided to stop in and join me today. Usually, I release a deck about once a week that goes over a Twin Suns deck, but occasionally I go over new cards, and occasionally I also go over news. This is going to be my first official news video because something incredible dropped just yesterday about the future of Star Wars Unlimited. Specifically, it's a brand new format called 3 decks, 1 duel. 3 decks, 1 duel. And I cannot wait to dive in and show you a little bit about this brand new format and what it's all about. I don't know for sure, but I think this is going to kind of be the premier format. So let's jump to the desktop and let's read through the article for the new type of play, the new play type, 3 decks, 1 duel. Okay, so here, this of course came out on June 18th, and today is the 20th, so I guess it came out 2 days ago. If you haven't read this yet, this is really exciting news. It says, as a trading card game, Star Wars Unlimited naturally is host to multiple ways to play. We already know this. We have standard format and Twin Suns format. In just the game's first year, we've had limited formats of draft play, sealed play, multiplayer, Twin Suns, and of course the primary premier format for both casual and the competitive scene. Starting next year, we'll also have the Eternal format, in which players can enjoy premier style games with the entire card pool of what if we told you we had another format cooking up behind the scenes? Okay, let me go over the basics of the trilogy format. In the trilogy format, both players are going to come to the match with 3 different decks. 3 different decks. These decks are each going to have a leader and a base combination that is different. So you cannot have the same leader in any of the decks, nor the same base in any of the decks. Although you can have the same faction combinations. So just to give you an example, you could play, let's say, a blue base with Emperor Palpatine, and you could play green, black, blue that way, and then you could also play the new Vader with a blue base, and again be green, black, blue. As long as those 2 bases are different, those 2 leaders are different, so you're able to play that. So you could technically bring 3 decks that are all the same combinations as long as they have different leaders and they have different bases. Each of those decks is also then going to be 50 cards. It's going to show you everything right here. This is maybe what's most interesting about the new format. I think most of us could expect that, but here it is. It says, here's where, however, where the premier format restricts you to a maximum of 3 copies of any given card of your deck, the trilogy format restricts you to a maximum of 3 copies of any given card across, read this, all 3 decks. They give an example. This means that if you wanted to include 3 copies of Open Fire in one of your decks, you couldn't include any copies of it in either of your other 2 decks. You could put 2 copies in one deck, in one in another, or you could put a single copy in all 3 decks. Whatever combination you want, so long as you don't have more than 3 cards across the board. This is an incredibly interesting distinction on how you're going to set up your decks, because you are now limited to 3 of the legendary cards that might be the most influential. So for example, you're probably not going to be playing 2 decks that run Vigilance Heroism, because Vigilance Heroism is going to run 3 copies of Luke Skywalker almost every single time. So you're probably not going to be running a Rey Red deck and also a Yoda Green deck, for example, because both of those decks are going to want access to the set 1 Luke Skywalker, and you can only have 3 copies of it. In a similar way, a lot of Command Villainy decks are going to want multiple copies of Darth Vader. There you have a little bit more flexibility. We have the new Darth Vader coming out, who could be very good in those decks. We also have Maul. And so there are some cards or some card combinations in certain slots that have iterations that could make it viable to have multiple decks. But there are some cards that are very, very unique, and the thing that they do is unique, and they would be extraordinarily difficult to replace. And so you're not going to, have multiple. Now, that being said, there's a new Anakin coming out that does something very similar to what Set 1 Luke Skywalker does, which is one of the reasons I think they waited to release this so that they could have redundancy, so that in some of these trilogy matches, you're able to actually run the similar or same color combinations or faction combinations. I guess they're aspect combinations in multiple decks if you have something that you really like or a playstyle that's really strong. Now, that's not the only thing about this format. As we read down here, we're playing a best of 3 with a pick ban phase, which is very interesting. So you initially reveal all of your combinations of leaders and bases. So your opponent will know not just what leader you're playing, but all of your leader base combinations. Of course, that'll make sure that at least at that point, everything is legal. Then each of you is going to secretly choose and reveal at the same time one of your opponent's decks that you're going to ban. That deck is going to be set aside. You're not going to go up against it. Then you're going to secretly pick a deck and reveal at the same time the deck that you pick. Then you're going to play a match. Whoever wins, that person's deck is eliminated, and they are forced off to their second deck. The person who loses can stay on the same deck that they have, or, I'm sorry for bumping that, or they can switch to their other deck. The only way to win the match in this best of 3 is to win with both of your remaining unbanned decks. So you're not just going to be able to get really good at one deck and hope that your opponent doesn't ban it, or really good at 2 decks and ensure that you always have like one good deck, even if your opponent bans one of the decks. You're not going to be able to have any slouches here. You're going to have 3 decks that are all viable, strong, and capable of taking games. And you're going to have to be a good enough pilot with all 3 of those decks to know the matchups. This is going to be the entire next level in terms of strategy and depth of gameplay for Star Wars Unlimited. And that is what I really love about it. Earlier down in this article, it goes into a little bit of a deeper thing to kind of give you a little, idea of why they're doing it and a little bit of their thought process behind it all. But I just wanted to bring it up because if you don't know that this is coming up, I think it's a really cool way to play Star Wars Unlimited. It's definitely going to quickly be my preferred way. Rather than a best of 3 against the same, this pick, ban, having to win with both of your decks, mastering 3 different decks, knowing your matchups really well is so incredibly interesting. This lends itself to depths and levels of strategy because there's a level of strategy in what you ban, knowing what your 3 decks are good against or not good against. There's a level of strategy in the banning, thinking like, well, if I let this deck through, it is going to take a game. But I need to ban this deck that's moderately good and it's good against both or all 3 of my decks that I brought to the field. I'll take this deck out that is good against all of my decks moderately, and I'll leave their incredibly strong deck in the format because I know they have to win with both. And I know that all of my decks match up really good against that one deck. They're not going to be able to take that game. That's a really interesting decision point. And so I really like that about this. I really love that pick and ban phase. I think is really interesting. And then creating the decks where you can only have 3 copies of card across all 3 decks, I think is so intriguing. I think the reason that it is so intriguing is because it really, oh, by the way, it's going to be an eternal format as well. So you're going to be able to dig up any of the old cards that you had. And so even after rotation, you're still going to be able to use all of the cards that have been rotated, which I think is also very interesting and very cool. The deck building strategy that goes into this with only being able to have 3 copies across 3 decks is so intriguing to me. And I think it's going to create a lot of thoughtful gameplay and decision making, and it will cause our decks to go really deep, right? Because you sort of have the benefit of like, if I know how to play blue heroism control really well, or let's say I know I've played a lot of villainy ramp, maybe I want to play a couple iterations of that. Well, here's the hard part. How am I going to play a couple iterations of that if I can't play super laser technician in each of the decks? okay, if I can't play Super Laser Tech in each of the decks, I can't very well play what I've been good at, which is Villainy Ramp. Or let's say Heroism Control. Once again, I don't have as much, access to things like, Vengeance or Hero's Downfall, or I don't have as much access to like Luke Skywalker. I don't have as much access to Redemption, right? And a lot of these cards that I'm going to want to have as 3-ofs, I'm not going to have as much access to, which forces you to play a variety of different styles. And it also probably forces you to bring like 2 of one faction in terms of heroes and villainy and 1 of the other, which I think is also really interesting. So it forces you to branch out. Who does this format hurt? This format hurts people who have been budget players who have put together a good deck, right? They've not bought a lot of cards. They've mostly bought singles. They got that Gar Saxon aggro going because it didn't have a lot of legendaries in it. And now they're looking at saying, I have to build 3 good decks. This system definitely benefits people like me who have a complete collection and have continued to buy cards. It definitely hurts people who do not have a complete collection. This also hurts people like me, who is a dad and works full-time and things and don't have as much time to master a multitude of decks in a given season of Star Wars Unlimited. It definitely benefits people who have a lot more time on their hands, who can slam more games on Kara or on Petronaki Arena, who have a steady gaming group that they can get together with once a week and they can jam out some games and learn their matchups better. It definitely benefits people, of course, with more time because there's a much higher skill cap. But it also, once again, benefits people who are good deck builders, which I love. It benefits people who are good pilots, which I love. And it benefits people who are creative because you're going to have to get creative with the depth of your card pool here. I think that's really interesting as well. All of this net, I think, is positive for Star Wars Unlimited, and it's encouraging to me that they're not just cooking up new cards, they're continually cooking up new formats. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Are you excited to play this like trifecta style, the 3 decks, 1 duel format? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Are you excited for it? I know I am, but I'd love to know if you are. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you know when I'm putting out new content. Thanks so much for tuning into this video, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.